All right, Kelly Martin, describe what you do at Barstool Sports. How long have you been here?
October will be 3 years. So about,
that's
yeah,
amazing.
a little.
Okay.
Yeah. So what do I do here? So I book talent for all of our shows. And then I also oversee the press here as well. So not just for content press, but for yourself, Dave, partners, all that good stuff.
Do you like it?
Yeah, I love it. I come from TV, so like this is a different world. And it has been a different world. So the TV world is very like strict. You have a call time. You have to shoot one show at one time. You take a break, another show at another. It's just so like there's no wiggle room for anything. So when I came here, I was like, holy shit, this is a new world and I love it. There's flexibility. You can just do whatever you want as long as you get your shit done. So from being in TV to here, it's just been like a different world. To be a much better world. I would never go back to TV.
It was funny. I can remember interviewing you. We were at HQ2. Your hair was quite short.
Yeah, you remember I used to wear like
your hair was quite
bob.
short,
Yeah.
and you had a blouse with like a tie, ribbon on it, and it reminded me of who's the sister from Eddie Munster?
Oh, Wednesday Addams.
Yeah, you reminded me of Wednesday Addams. I was like, she's very Wednesday Addams. I thought you were one part Wednesday Addams and then one part the girl from Election. What's her name? That Reese Witherspoon plays? Come on, you guys. Have you seen Election, Frankie?
I mean, they probably weren't born when Election came out.
Crick or come on.
I'll tell you.
All right, it doesn't matter.
They're not moving fast enough.
It doesn't matter. But anyways, you had come very highly recommended. We had the only guests we were booking were people that Big Cat was DMing.
Yeah.
And Jared from Sirius was like, this girl's a killer. I met you and I was like, oh, she's a killer.
Yeah.
Like you were very to the point and this is what I do. And I just
how I'm
liked
gonna do
you.
it. Yeah.
This is how I'm going to do it. I liked you instantly. I just was impressed by you. I thought you had your shit together. You were a little bit feisty, very clear on what you know how to do.
Yeah.
You had a vision for your gig. So you've built the talent. You've built the whole talent operation here, which for us has been so instrumental in growing our podcast. So talk a little bit about what was it like when you got here? What are your biggest learnings?
So when I first got here, I remember everyone like thought I was a psychopath. Because I was like, you're all going to get binders with upcoming films, TV shows, albums, comedy shows. What am I missing, Jordan?
Oh, I remember
Books,
this actually.
everything.
And you were who worked for you?
Jordan.
But someone else too.
Well, I've had some hiring mistakes.
Well, everybody has.
Yeah. I mean,
Let's
I
go.
think it was just Jordan though at that time, right?
Yeah. But for anyone listening to this, Kelly was maniacal about
I'm
the
a psychopath.
binders.
Yeah, I still am.
We had never had binders. We were like, what?
I still am.
Okay.
Because I wanted to hold them accountable. Like, hey, if you want this guest, we're going to try, but you're taking this guest if this guest comes through. And I'm going to make sure that it's noted that you wanted this guest because you're highlighting their names. Like, you're not just telling me in person because then it's like, oh, wait, I didn't say that. I was like, nope, we're keeping track of this shit. So, yeah, I came in, I started the binder system. But they also weren't used to any sort of real process in a department yet where, like, they needed to actually follow the rules all the time. So it was hard to get them on board. But then once I was bringing in these big names. I remember within like the first 2 months I started, Kevin Hart came, like I got him to come to HQ. And they're like, oh shit, maybe she knows what she's talking about.
Yeah.
So then it was easier to get them on board. But in the beginning they were just like, this is funny. Like this girl thinks she's going to tell us that we have to do X, Y, and Z on a deadline. And
I actually liked that. I felt that you were one of the only hires that came in that were not afraid of the talent and were very clear about what talent needed to do to engage with you. Like,
for sure.
I think you're ruthless about details.
I am. And I think that makes us better as a company with bringing in these new names that help kind of bring us to another level. When I think about the names that came in my first year here versus the names that we're getting now, I mean, we're just on a whole different level.
Yeah.
Completely.
And you talked about hiring mistakes. Like, what are the lessons you've learned here?
With hiring?
Or in general, but let's start with hiring.
Hiring was tough because I think that it takes a certain person to work here. Like, you can't just be like great at your job. You have to fit Barstool Sports. And I've hired a couple people that just didn't fit us. If you want to come here and socialize and gossip and like, that's not my team at all. Like, I don't like that. So that didn't work with a couple of the hires. Well, also that was like, my job here was the first time I was managing like a whole team. So that was a learning experience for me too. Like, hey, if you're going to hire people, you better make sure they're a good fit. Like, don't just jump because you need the help. Take time and actually like call all 5 of their references, not just 2, or, you know, make them meet with more people here. So that was definitely a learning curve that I had. And now we have like an amazing team, and I'm so happy with every person on my team.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel that checking the references is a mistake that I've also made. It's kind of like by the time you get to that point, you're so you've found the person. And
you're like, yes, we're getting help.
We got them, just like get them in the door. And then but the reference thing, I think, is very telling. And then I agree. I do think it takes, you know, I think your group is somewhat interesting. It takes a certain person to thrive at Barstool Sports. I think you have to be sharp. You have to be willing to work hard. You have to have thick skin. You have to have stamina. And you have to have like a good answer for what are you doing. Like, I don't think we're a place.
And I also think you have to be confident in your opinions, because if you're not, you're just going to get steamrolled in every conversation. Like, if you don't have an opinion, don't just make shit up, because people will actually challenge you here. So I think that's really important too for people that work here, and like just finding that person that isn't afraid to give their opinion.
Yep, I agree with that. And then I also think you need to, if you're looking to hide, or if you're looking to have a job where nobody calls you out, or you never have the spotlight on you, this is not a good place.
Yeah, no. You have to be ready for anything here.
Yep. What is, like, give us a guest story where we had someone come to Barstool and it was a disaster or it was a success.
Oh my God. Do you know who I'm going to say? You're laughing. Oh, that was a disaster. I was thinking of French Montana, which was like a... Well, Action Bronson,
go with
like,
both.
Him and Kevin got in a fight in the studio. And like
Kevin Clancy.
Yeah, because he asked him about... Oh my God, I can't remember. This was in the old office. He asked him about like having beef with some rapper that he like doesn't talk about. And he basically told Kevin he was going to throw him through a fucking wall. And I was like in the control room like, oh my God, Kevin's going to get beat the shit out of.
And meanwhile, the control room in the old office, just for people to know, was the size of like a 2x4 table. Like, it was so small. I would be embarrassed for you when we had guests come, because Barstool was so shitty.
And their reps were like, where can we watch? I'm like, you can just stand up against that wall right over there.
Completely. Like, you'll be out of the view of the camera. Yeah, exactly. That you would go into the studio and the insulation on the walls was peeling off. So you would trot people in. I always would feel so badly for you. You would trot people in. They would sit down. You'd get exposed to the Barstool personalities. On the case of Action Bronson, like, he's getting into a, spitting match with Kevin. The reps out in the hall. You're in a control room with a sign that says record your fucking stream, and it's fitting 6 guys, 6 tech guys in there when there's really room for 2.
Oh my God, the control room guys used to hate me.
Yeah.
They used to hate me. Thank God we have a big control room now, and like they learned to love me a little bit, but in the beginning they were just like, here's Kelly bringing in like 5 fucking publicists.
I miss the old control room. When something was happening on radio, people would go just crowd into the control room just to watch, which was funny. Okay, so that was one bad guest experience. What's another one?
So French Montana, I wouldn't say he was like entirely bad, but we just had some issues. He showed up to the pizza review first. Like, I want to say he got there about 30 minutes late, and then he just sat in the car, and Dave was just like, Kelly, like, we need to start. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I know. And then I would like go and tell them we need to start. And we were just like going back and forth for a little bit. And then Dave was just like, fuck this, I'm going to go do the pizza review in his like Sprinter. So Dave just like knocked on the door and went into the Sprinter and did the pizza review with French Montana right there. But prior to that, like, obviously Frankie was filming, and we were just talking shit about how he was like late and sitting in his Sprinter, and it didn't make him look that great. So then his team asked me to pull the pizza review down.
Did we?
no. I was like, no, you did this to yourself. Like, no. And we don't do that here.
Yeah.
And then he just like wasn't great on chicks in the office either. Like they were being playful and he like felt insulted. It was just like he did too many things here and I think he was very high.
That'll do it.
Don't clip this because I like his publicist, but yeah.
Okay. Okay, so you are in your mid-30s.
Yep, I'm 33.
33. Mm-hmm. That's almost mid. You're not quite there yet,
God,
which is nice.
ew.
Yeah, I'm not going to age you.
Okay, good.
Tell me, you're at the top of your game.
Mm-hmm.
You have a big job. Mm-hmm. You're beloved in this company. You've done an amazing job growing a team and growing a division out of nothing, which I think is not easy to do. Like,
but it was so exciting.
So fun.
Yeah.
It's the best thing ever. Like I think the perfect example of the shortcut. Mm-hmm. And what I like about you is, we had the pizza review in Brooklyn with McConaughey.
Oh yeah, the Cast of the
Gentleman. Yeah. And you can see all the publicists. Like the publicists you can see from a mile away. Yeah. I like that you can sit with the publicists and you can look, you've got your Gucci shoes, you fit, you blend. Yeah. But it's very obvious that you are far more empowered and in control versus other publicists, in my opinion, who have to, and not because they're not smart, great, awesome, talented people, mostly women, but because you're running the show.
Yeah.
And I like that you've done a good job of balancing running the show and also blending on the ground. Like I don't feel like you're a person where there's a job that's beneath you.
Oh no. Definitely not.
But what have you, so you're at an interesting life stage. So like, what do you see in, what's it been like to grow a team? What's it been like what are you learning about yourself? How do you think about work and life? And
so I think like growing a team, I came here when I was, I guess, 30, turning 31. And that was just like a huge jump in my career. So that was very empowering for me. And I knew I could run a team prior, but I wasn't given the chance because in the TV world, it's very like,
hierarchical.
You have to be doing this for 20 years or, it's just, they don't usually, I feel like they're a little ageist as well, which I appreciate at Barstool. You guys are not, we're not at all. But growing a team is very empowering. It's like, it's all on you. At the end of the day, if shit goes wrong with you or Dave, you guys are going to call me, whether it was me who fucked it up or someone on my team. So I feel like I take a lot of ownership on behalf of the entire team. So that's very empowering. What was the other question? I forgot.
How do you think about your career? Like, what do you think about it?
So what I think about my career, I like my work-life balance. Like I work all the time, but I also make sure that I have time for myself. Like the girls laugh. I always take a bath every night. Or
you're an early to bed person.
Yeah, I go to bed by 9 p.m. because I'm up at 6, and when I'm up, I start working. So work-life balance for me is very important now. In my early 20s or even in my mid-20s, I didn't care. I just like lived for my job, which I still do, but I found a happy medium where if something is going on in my life that's a big deal, I'll say to the girls like, hey, can you cover for me for a couple hours? Before that, it was like, nope, I need to be controlling. I need to own all my shit at all. Like
if I don't do it, it won't be perfect.
Yeah.
Yep.
But now it's just like, no, I can let go a little bit and give people the opportunity to step up because that will just help them grow.
What lessons have you learned as a manager?
You don't always know what people are going through. So to just cut them a little slack sometimes because they probably need it. But in the same note, you have to make sure that they own their shit. So I don't know if does that contradict itself a little bit?
No, I think that you can be both.
Yeah.
You can be empathetic but demanding.
Exactly. And then I think giving people praise, I need to do that more. I think that goes a long way with a lot of people here. So I've learned that. What else have I learned? I don't know. I think those are two of the biggest things. Yeah.
And how do you think about, like, I think what's interesting, what do you see in women coming up under you, and what do you see in women who are older in here?
So women, so in the workplace, I feel like, and I was like this too in my 20s, I feel like women that are just starting out or, in their mid-20s or late 20s, they want to be friends with everybody at work. I think that is the biggest no. I think you lose respect that way because everyone thinks you're their friend and they don't have to necessarily respect you in your role at times. I think it's fine to have your work friends, but you don't have to go to happy hour with that big group of people all the time. It's okay if you have friends outside of work. Yeah. You don't have to be like...
Sometimes good to have friends outside of work.
I mean, I've said that to Jordan when she moved here. I was like, you have so many friends at Barstool Sports. Like, you need to make sure that you're making friends outside, because who are you going to talk to when you want to vent about your job? The people you work with? Then it's like a vicious...
She's like, yes.
...cycle. But you know what I mean? Then you don't have any outside opinion because everyone's in bed with each other. Like, they know what's going on. So I think that is something I would give that advice to many women, men, anyone starting out in their career. You don't have to be friends with people. You don't have to be best friends with people you work with. Mm-hmm. It's almost better if you're not.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think when your world is work, and I don't mean that in working, I just mean your social life is it creates an unhealthy relationship, and I think it also blurs the lines of what you do every day. Mm-hmm. And then it creates a weird social norm where I was talking to someone at WrestleMania about it last weekend, where at this point, look, I could tell you what every single person at Barstool Sports is doing on the weekend because it's all on their social media. And I can tell you what everyone at Barstool Sports, if I cared to, was doing all week because it's on their social media. So it creates a weird, it's an interesting dynamic, I think, for people in their 20s, because they share so much. Mm-hmm. And if your whole world is encapsulated at your job, I agree with you.
What's the rest of your world?
What's the rest of your world? How are you expanding and growing as a person? Sometimes it's nice to have friends. Like, I find I most value my friends who don't give a fuck what I do all day. Like,
that don't ask you questions.
Because it forces you to be a real person. Yeah. It's like, who's Erika? Like, is she a good friend? She's not a good friend. Like,
and also I think it's almost important to not overshare at work as well. And when you're friends with so many people, they already know what your personal life is.
And they're sharing for you.
Yeah. And I mean, I like to be a bit more private. And I think that that's almost better, because people, if I'm having a bad day, people don't necessarily know. I just come here and I do my job. If I'm friends with everyone and they're all in my shit all the time, then, it's like, what's wrong? How's it going? Yeah. You get babied a little bit. Mm-hmm. And it's like, nope, you're here to do a job. Do your job.
Mm-hmm. What about women? What is a positive you're learning from women or people younger than you here or anywhere?
I think that the whole social media presence of the younger, I mean, I'm 33. I'm like considered old here, which is so sad because everyone here is, in their young 20s.
Yeah.
But they know the world that we don't. Like, I don't know anything about TikTok. Well, now I do because of BFFs, but before this, like, I'm learning from Jillian and Jordan and Katie all the time about these people that I have no idea who they are. So it's almost like a generational thing where that's beneficial for at least our department, and I think for our company as well, because now we have all these people here that
are in the demo.
It's their demo, and they're experts in it.
Yeah. Yep.
And we're not.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. What about women older than you?
So I actually look up to every single woman here who's older than me, because I think the level of professionalism is what I strive to be. I'm somewhere in the middle, but I like to view myself as being professional here. But I think women that are older are just taken much more seriously because they have that experience where they know their shit, number one. People respect them, number two. And they just have an air about them that's like, hey, I'm professional. And I think that grows as you get older.
That's interesting. Mm-hmm. And then how do you think about you're at an age where so much is happening? People are getting married, mm-hmm. babies, your friend group starts to...
Oh yeah, my friends they're all getting knocked up.
Yeah, it's a big time.
So I'm going to get married soon, mm-hmm. which I'm excited about.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I actually was talking to Jillian. I was like, I want to have babies in a year. And she was like, holy shit, I hope we hire someone new to be on your desk when you're pregnant.
You are going to be a raging bitch when you're pregnant.
And I was like, Jillian.
Oh, God.
I was like, Jillian. But I do think, I think about that sometimes. When I have a baby one day, what's going to happen to my work-life situation? But I like to work. I almost define my self-worth by my career majority of my life.
Do you wish you didn't?
No, I don't wish I didn't, because I'm so passionate about my job and my career, and like this is what I've always wanted to do. I just, there's more to life than work. But I don't think I would ever not work. I would go crazy. I recently took time off, and my fiance was like, "You got to go back to work."
You're driving me nuts.
Yeah, like, go.
Yeah, get out of here.
Get out.
What do you think about Jordan? So, little known fact, Jordan technically works for Kelly. What do you think about having friends at work?
I mean,
You're like ground zero of that.
I'm the worst example because yeah, we've talked about it. I moved here with, my only friends were my friends who moved here with me in Indy that I met through Barstool. And so
Are they still your friends, best friends here?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of them didn't get their contracts renewed, but one of them that's still here is a close friend of mine. And, I mean, unfortunately, a lot of my friends here are my coworkers, but I've finally started branching out.
But that's like a good topic, though, of like, so what happens when your friend doesn't get their contract renewed and they're like, fuck Barstool, they suck. Like, how do you handle that?
I think everyone here generally thinks I'm really nice, so they know I'm never going to say anything negative, which, like Kelly said, people steamroll me because I am so nice, but I just exposed myself on the podcast. But I don't know. I think at the same time where it's been bad to have so many friends here, I also am
They're your
learning.
friends.
Yeah, but I'm learning that professionalism that Kelly noted that you strive to have. Like, I think you do a good job, Erika, of being not necessarily a friend. Like, you're the CEO, but you're not intimidating in the way that, like, your employees can still come talk to you. And so in the same way, like, things may not go well career-wise for my friends here, I'm still able to maintain that professionalism where we don't touch it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. How give the Barstool pitch, like when you're trying to convince a publicist to bring their people here. What do you say?
I mean, now I don't really have to do that much convincing. It's more like specific shows and people that are fits. But so before COVID, I would go to a lot of like breakfast, lunches, dinners, drinks, and that was where I would like to pitch because I'm so much better in person. I don't like to email that much. Like, let's get on the phone and chat it through. But in the beginning, I was just like, this is the place that you're going to want to be. Like, if you don't want to be here now, trust me, in a year from now, you're going to wish that you were here just on our platforms. And then as we've grown, it's become so much easier just pitching specific shows for specific talent, external talent, because we're just so big now. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like I just give offers now. Some people, like for Call Her Daddy, that's a show where like I pitch and like I talk about Alex and her show and why it's more like, hey, this is why your client, should be on this show. Mm-hmm. And it's a numbers game. I talk numbers a lot. I talk recent guests a lot. Like, hey, you want to do part of my take because Adam Sandler's done part of my take. McConaughey's done part of my take. Like, it's more like, hey, everyone else is doing this and you haven't yet. Don't you feel a little left
FOMO,
out?
Peer pressure.
Yeah,
peer
like,
pressure.
Don't you feel a little left out?
Yep.
It's a lot of manipulation, which I'm not proud of, but I am at the same time.
That's the game, though, don't you think?
Yeah. But just saying it out loud sounds kind of shitty.
Do you think that people, like, what's the negative perceptions that publicists have of us?
They think that we're cruel to women. And it's just like, you don't know us. Mm-hmm. Or some people, I hate when people online are like, how can women work for Barstool? How can women go on their platform? And those are people that just don't know Barstool Sports. They're just reading something that they've heard in the past and they're just jumping on a bandwagon. And I hate that. But publicists, they don't always come out and say that to me.
They'll just skirt it.
Yeah. And then I'm like, hey, let's hop on the phone, or like, let's chat it through. Because I'll sit there and I'll actually give explanations. And, I'll say like one person doesn't represent everybody here, or like the mistakes of one person or two people, like that doesn't represent the entire company. And look, we've learned from all those mistakes and we're bigger and better from back then. But now what I'm really proud of is that when we have a publicist start working with us that has never worked with us, they come back for more just because they see what we do. Yeah. So not just our show, but like our clips on Twitter.
The reaction.
The reaction, yes.
Yeah.
The press we get from our content. So that's what makes me really proud. Like whenever we get someone in the door,
it's high
they
ROI.
Stick around.
Yeah.
It's very rare that they don't stick around.
Yeah, it's so interesting. So I was also having this conversation last weekend. And, I think what's interesting is that when you look at most media companies, their executives they're focused on the business of the media company, not necessarily the media company. If I don't know that at the top of ESPN, they are obsessing over the coverage, the shows, the roadmap, future programming. And the thing I really like about Barstool is that Dave and I are very, very focused on the product and the content, like hands-on, interested in what's hitting consumers. And I think that all publicists really care about is like, am I making my person more famous, more recognizable, more marketable, more lucrative by virtue of where I place them? Yeah. And the downside of that is always reputational, right? Dave and I have this conversation all the time. He went on, we should check this, but he went on Ben Shapiro's podcast, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, should I go on Ben Shapiro's podcast? And I'm like, what's the difference between Ben Shapiro and Tucker Carlson? Mm-hmm. Like very large, high-rated podcast. Yes, people are going to think that you're somehow aligning with a conservative, but if he asks you political questions, you're going to give
the same
your
answer.
Normal answer, which is I don't care about politics. So I think that it's a game. It's a game for views, and we're a good generator of eyeballs and views.
And also to go back to like how we were just talking about how people sometimes perceive Barstool negatively. I think back to when I worked in TV. And like the TV industry is so fucked up compared to anything here that it's so crazy that people don't.
Meaningfully fucked up. Like they had buttons under their desk to lock women in their offices. Like that's fucked up.
They did. At one show I worked at, like a friend and I, same age, same amount of experience. I actually have a master's degree. He does not. And he got paid probably 10 grand more than me. We sat down, and me, him, and my other girlfriend sat down. And we talked about our pay. We were like, oh, shit, he makes more than us because he's a man.
Yeah.
And just stuff like that. You have to wait to leave until the executive producer leaves. Like, what? What if the executive producer has an 8 p.m. dinner that night? You were in since 6:30 in the morning. You're sitting. It was the craziest environment.
Archaic rules and.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, so we like own our shit here. No one owns their shit in the TV world. And that's why I think all this stuff comes out like with time. And it's so interesting to me, like being here and working here in such an amazing environment from coming from there. And it's like, people have no idea what that world is like.
Yep, that's right. And that world's struggling. What about the press side of it? How do you think about the press?
So so I got my master's in media relations, but I still, I started in talent. But I did some press when I was younger, and then I took on press here. I think I was here for like 6 or 8 months. Yeah. The press side is a different beast. I'm always having to look at my phone at all times just because There's don't know happening. What's going to happen next. However, here we always have a heads up if something's happening. I think this past year, the press side has been just like brilliant for Barstool Sports with the fund. I think it's helped grow our perception in the media, and it like legitimized us, Dave, our company, and what we want to do for others, and just who we are. We're not what everyone thinks we are. Like, we're this too. So I think like that's been very positive. Of course, in the past there's been some negative situations that we've had to deal with, but you gotta take the good with the bad.
Yeah, I think we're in such a constant crisis. If you were to get really worked up, and I think you're a fairly high-strung person.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I'm a bit neurotic.
Yeah, a lot neurotic. In the best way, though, but I will say, I don't think you get that phased anymore. I feel like I don't get that phased anymore. I keep my composure. Anymore. Yeah, you've always kept your composure. Yeah. I think you have great composure. But I also feel that we deal with in a day, a week, and a month things that normal companies and other people in your shoes deal with once in a career.
Oh, for sure. And I remember when Jacqueline started, I forget what was going on, but she got so upset about it. And I was like, oh, it's fine. And she's like, what? It's fine. I was like, it's gonna be fine.
It's fine.
Like,
yeah,
it's fine. And she was just like, Kel, what?
I also,
And now she gets it.
Now
It's
she's like, oh, it's fine.
All right, this too shall pass.
Yeah, this too shall pass. But I think it's a really good thing. I think it's actually part of what helps us be so successful, or it helps, it is that, you know, if someone comes after an ESPN exec or an NBC exec, they're really rattled by it because it doesn't happen very often. And they don't have an aggressive or offensive strategy. And we tend to have either a indifference where we don't care, right? There's a Business Insider reporter who's, I think, reached out to every person who's ever worked here trying to write a story. There's indifference on that. Or there is offense. There's okay, fine. Yeah, you're saying this. This is how we're going to react to it. And we control our own media because the inside of this company, what we do on an administrative basis or a business basis is also public. So I think it also, it's a key ingredient in our ability to stay Barstool, in that we're not fazed by much. And the things that we are fazed by, we're able to react to quickly and directly.
And I also feel like we just like double down majority of the time. So then there's nothing else to talk about once we're just like, yeah, that's what happened and we own it. Like, so what? And then it almost goes away quicker. So that's a very interesting way to think about it. Yeah.
Okay, so last thing is what? Oh shit, I gotta go. Fuck, I'm so late for a meeting. All right, so Kel, like, part of working here is embracing the suck. Like, it's never easy. The days are long. You know, I don't think it's tedious ever, but I do think it's challenging.
Yeah.
We obviously are partnered with New Balance on embracing the suck and the idea that you can get through the hard times and get to the good times, but you got to work your way through it. So give me a perspective of like, how do you make it through the hard days here? Like, and what would your advice be to people who are in their career and wanting to do the same thing?
So I think that if you're in a job where the bad outweighs the good, like, you should look to get out and look for a new career or career path or just job. Advice for people that I would give, I actually wrote some notes because I think this is really important. So I think you should always work hard and be confident in yourself and in your job. Don't be complacent or get comfortable. I think it's really important to realize that thousands of other people probably want your job and can do it just as good as you can. So just don't get comfortable. And then don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it. But make sure you're not coming across like you're complaining. You're actually seeking for advice or help to just better the situation, or just guidance too.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I think that, you know, sometimes after I have a bunch of one-on-ones, I feel like, oh God, like that person just came in and complained about everything they hate about everybody else who works here and whatever initiatives they're working on or whatever their projects are. And then I sometimes feel the same way. Like, I'll look back if I have had a bunch of conversations with Penn or with the Chernin guys or the board, and I'm like, ugh, I sounded kind of like bitchy and whiny versus being positive and constructive. And I think that's a great, I think asking for help and showing vulnerability is one of the best things you can do.
Yeah, because we're not perfect. I mean, I've come to you for help so many times, and it's like, I'm not bugging you with stupid, tedious shit. It's like, oh, wait, I actually really need Erika to like help guide me in the situation or give me her opinion or what she would do in it.
Yeah, and then I think the good thing for the manager, and I think you do this with your team too, is that you give that advice, and then you're going to go make it your own. And you're not going to do it exactly the way I would do it. I'm not going to do it the exact way Jay Snowden thinks I should do it, but it will get done, which I think is a really great thing.
Yeah, for sure.
What's the experience like? Tell me, you know, you sit in an interesting spot where you have candy that all the talent wants, right? You have the prizes. You are a gateway to audience. You're working across 90 personalities, 60 shows. Like, what's it like working with the Dan and Daves? And what's it like working with Pardon My Take? And what's your perspective on that?
So I think probably one of the trickiest parts of my job is managing the different egos, because I won't talk to Dave the same way as I talk to Dan, is the same way I talk to Alex Cooper or Fran and Rhea. Like, everyone is so different, and you have to make sure you're speaking their language so you get across to them. But it's interesting here because across the variety of different shows, like Dave and Dan and like the chicks and people that are very successful already and they've built their brand, like they're always on top of their game. They'll write back in a couple minutes. I never have to follow up with them. They're on their game. And then sometimes it's the shows that need a little bit more audience or growth that I'm like, hey, did you get my email? Hey, did you see my text? Hey, are we good with this? And it's like, I shouldn't be having to do that.
So do you find that you're spending more time hounding the people who aren't big versus the people who are big?
Kinda. I do. Yes, I feel that way. But also I'm a little more careful with them because I know they need the help. So I want to make sure that they feel like they're being supported and we want to support them. Like if Dan and PFT don't get back to me in an hour, I'm like, hey, what the fuck are you guys doing? Like, do you want this or no? And they're like, oh, shoot, so sorry. Like, but that's very rare. You know, it's more common that these podcasts that need to grow a bit more, these hosts are, I shouldn't say podcasts, but shows that need to grow a bit more aren't necessarily taking as much pride in their show as I am when I'm pitching it.
Sure.
So that could be a little frustrating for me.
Yep. That's too bad. That's not a great sign. It also, you know, it's hard because it's like if you want something done, ask a person who's busy. You know, Dave's so responsive and so instinctive. Yes, he wants it. No, he doesn't.
I think that's what annoys the shit out of me the most is that everyone, well, not everyone, but many people here claim they're so super busy. And I'm like, okay, well, if Dan and Dave can write me back, they're the two busiest people at this company on that side.
Yeah, you're like, what the fuck are you doing?
Then, like, what's going on here?
Yeah. Yeah.
But then there's also people like Ravi Fox. Like, I want Ravi Fox to run a school here on how to do an interview because he's
one of the best
hands
interviewers
down. I think he's hands down one of the best interviewers we have here. Hands down. He's always prepared. He knows what question he's going to ask. He shows me sheets of just like questions, research, and outline, and I'm just like, holy shit. Like, this is why you're so great.
Yeah, he's awesome. We came back from WrestleMania, and Ravi Fox, you know, it's 3 a.m, and Ravi Fox is editing his own podcast.
Yeah,
like
he's a one-man show.
He's a complete one-man show.
Yeah.
Takes such pride in his work.
I love it. And those are people that I love working with.
Yeah, and you want to work harder for them.
Yes, 1,000%.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that, you know, I think there's two things. Like, one is you've got to find a way, the way you connect with Fran and Rhea and get Fran and Rhea to do something is completely different than the way you talk to Pardon My Take or
1000%.
Casey Smith, right?
Yeah.
And you have to learn that. Like, you know, I think one of the things people underestimate is you have to watch and you have to listen and you have to learn. Like, there's nothing that pisses talent off more than when you're not invested in their show or what they're doing. And I think, you know, not only understanding what it is that person is trying to create, but how that person thinks about creating it. Someone in your shoes has to be intuitive to that. Otherwise, it will never work.
Yeah, and I think across all of Barstool Sports, if you don't know the product, it's going to be very hard for you to do your job.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I say that to the salespeople all the time, which is like, if you don't understand what it is we're doing, there's zero chance that you will convince someone to be part of us. It was funny. I was having a conversation this morning about a league that turned down working with us. And I was like, honestly, you got to let them talk to us. Like, you have to let us talk to them.
Invite them into our home.
Invite them into our world. Don't push away. Don't protect them from us or us from them. Like, let's bring the two things. I know it's counterintuitive sometimes, which is what I was saying. But if you let us in the room and we can convey what it is we're trying to do.
There's also been times where in my world where I'm pitching and, you know, we're not getting anywhere, I'll just swallow my pride and be like, hey, I need this favor. I need you to give us a chance or take a chance on us with your client. And I'll do something for you. I'll take your lower level.
Yeah, I'll
find something. Like, the best thing about Barstool Sports and booking guests here, I can almost always find somewhere to put somebody.
Yeah.
So I've swallowed my pride and asked for favors before.
Of course.
And I
It's
think
what you have
you got
to
to do it.
Yeah,
It's all about relationships, and they know I'll help them out. Like,
completely
in the near future.
I also think that, you know, that in our world, in a talent world, it also flows back the other way, which is you have a certain number of hours in a day. You have a certain number of people who you work with and quote unquote serve, right? If someone's a jerk or they're not responsive or they're disrespectful, I think sometimes people don't understand that the support system knows who's good to work with and who's not. And if you make it easy for people like you or your team, they'll work that much harder for you and love you that much more. And that ultimately you hold a lot of the keys to the kingdom. So they treat you badly, they're not going to get.
Well, I even remember when I first started working here, it was probably like a couple of months in, and I was just talking to you about some of the different content people because I was just learning them then. And you straight up told me, you're like, oh, if they're being a dick, don't give them anything. I don't care. If
shouldn't.
They're
they
not,
should treat you with respect.
And no one is ever a dick to me.
Yeah.
I'll be very clear. No one, like everyone is so, I think I have a great relationship with majority of our talent here, if not all. But yeah, if you don't have your shit together and if you're not answering, I'm not gonna try harder for you if you're not trying hard for yourself.
Correct. Yeah. And I think that's a really good value proposition, which is, you have to be good at your job. You have to be excellent. You have to create value and show results.
Yeah.
They need to engage, give a great interview, give a guest an awesome experience, and to do something that only we can do, which is to make people relatable. And when both sides are ready to do that, it's awesome. When one side's ready and the other side isn't, it's kind of a disaster. And I think that exchange is true in everything. It's not just talent and press or talent and guests. It's sales, it's merchandise, it's the whole thing.
And it's like the mutual respect that I think is very important.
Yeah.
If you don't respect people that are helping you, like they're not going to respect you back.
Completely.
Like just in the world.
Yeah, and you also don't deliver results. Like that everyone is like, how did you do it in the beginning? And I'm like, honestly, I just had to prove that I could create some value for people every day. And I like that our culture is just about creating value every day. I think that we do not do well with a lot of fluff. Like we had a discussion last week of, we're not a company that spends a lot of time on the strategery or the why. It's just the what and the how. And I think if you can deliver the what and the how and to show something happened, we created progress, that's when everyone here gets really excited.
Well, it's so funny you say we don't like have any fluff here, and I feel like people on the internet think I'm mean because I'm just like very straightforward and blunt, but men talk like that all the time. And then when I do, it's like, oh, Kelly's so mean. But I'm not mean. I'm just being completely straightforward, and I'm not skirting around it at all.
Completely.
Which I wish more people were like that in our world, not just at work.
I like that because I think we have in some ways like a genderless place whereby it's just like everybody's blunt and direct. And I don't know if that's masculine or if that's feminine at this point because all the women are like it and the men are kind of like it too.
Yeah.
I think the women here are actually more blunt than the men.
But I think when the internet sees it, like when PFT and I were playing Jenga and I would be like, PFT, shut the fuck up. I was dead serious. And he said it right back to me. And people were like, oh my God, they're so mean to each other.
You're like, no, that's our love language.
Yeah, exactly.
That's our love language. Any other advice for people starting their career, in their career, trying to make it in communications or in talent?
I think give it time. I feel like when I first started my first job in television, I was like, holy shit, this sucks. Like the hours are long, you're doing bitch work, but when you put in the time and the effort, you'll grow and you'll just feel empowered and you'll just go up the chain and you'll one day be running a department. It takes time.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's hard I think that's what's hard about the internet is everyone thinks everything happens now and you're just going to get it. And sometimes getting something way, way, way before you're ready for it can be a disaster because you'll fail. But I always believe you should push yourself. You should definitely make yourself uncomfortable. I think, pushed yourself coming here. But also being patient there's a lot to learn and do. Being patient and working at something isn't a failure. It's actually part of the process.
And I think I would also say to younger people coming up, listen. Like you don't always have to talk. Just listen to what's happening around you, what people are saying. You're just going to learn. And if you listen more, like you'll probably grow faster.
Yeah. Yep. I also am big on thank you notes. I think that more people should say thank you or to invest the time to write someone what you observed or felt. Like I wish more people did that. I'm always so touched when someone does that. Like I did that. I left WWE. I wrote a note to Vince. I wrote a note to Stephanie. I wrote a note to Paul. I wrote a note to Nick Khan. I wrote a note to Kevin Dunn. And each one of the notes was the same and totally different, right? Of like, thank you so much for having me. Here's what I saw.
Yeah.
Like, here's what I learned. Here's one idea. I don't know if you're thinking about this.
Yeah.
And I also think that that's a very unspoken currency in your world, which is you're trying to manage a bunch of relationships with talent here and also celebrities, athletes, personalities, external people. And the connective tissue of just saying, thank you for coming. We really loved blah, blah, blah about the interview. Let's stay in touch. I think just moves you forward in building your network.
And it came up yesterday in our meeting when one of our content people were like, oh, we got to make sure we're sending merch and we're doing this. And I was like, well,
we
actually,
do all that. Yeah.
The day after we sent a thank you note and we asked for their size and address, and we make sure they have a great, dope package of like all of our swag here. And I think that's very important because that's how you maintain relationships. People want to know that you're grateful and that you're happy with what they did for you and vice versa.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yep, that's awesome. All right, Kelly, thank you so much.
Thank you. This is fun.
Awesome.